Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 338. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are having a great weekend and a great summer. I know it's a bit hot out there, but that's the nature of the business. It's summertime, and enjoy it. Go to the pool, go to the beach, go to the lake, because sooner or later it's going to be fall and then winter. And that's the cycle of life. Thank you guys for joining me today. Got a really good podcast for you. I don't want to waste any time because I got a lot to get to, and I want to get right into it. So we're going to start with this article that came out in the New York Times this week, making a lot of news. And this is a analytic report by the New York Times looking at the fall off that Democrats are having in voter registration across the country. You can see here the article is behind a paywall, but actually have a syndicated version of the article here. But this little line here is not on the syndicated version. It says, Florida used to be a swing state. I don't know if you guys remember in the 2000 election, Tim Russert, during the 2000 election, and he held up the whiteboard, Florida, all came down to Florida. And then you end up having the recount in Florida and everything that went on in Florida. Florida used to be a swing state. Florida is no longer a swing state. And what this line says, it says Florida has had a significant shift in registered voters in the Republican direction. More people were voting or registering Republican in Florida. A remarkable inversion that explains the state's transformation from a what is that? Perennial battleground to a new symbol of Red America. Democrat, it's the headline. The Democratic Party faces a voter registration crisis. Voter registration crisis the Democratic Party is facing. And then the subtitle, the party is bleeding support beyond the ballot box, the new analysis shows. So again, this is the syndicated version of the article, but it's in the New York Times. It says, I'm going to just read a little bit of it, not a lot. Democratic Party is hemorrhaging, bleeding, hemorrhaging. What's the other word that's used here? Bleeding, hemorrhaging, crises is what the Democratic Party is experiencing. Of the 30 states that track voter registration by political party, Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single one between 2020 and 2024 elections, and often by a lot, is what this article says. This isn't opinion. This is an analytic report. They went and they analyzed this. Democratic Party's in crisis. These are some articles that are written about that New York Times article. This one, Democrats are bleeding support against Trump. New York Times analysis shows. Democrats getting clobbered by GOP and voter registration nationwide, cratering with new voters. Democrats shed millions of registered voters, Republican gains. I want you to take a listen to this clip, breaks down the article. Take a listen.
Fewer Americans are choosing to register as Democrats. A new analysis of voter registration data shows the number of voters declared as Democrats is on the decline, and Republicans are gaining. According to a new analysis by the New York Times and data firm L2, in 30 states that track voter registration by political party, Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every one of those states between 2020 and 2024.
Democrats are in crises. In crises is what this article is shown, and everyone's talking about it. Michael Schmerkernich did a poll the day after this article came out. He does daily polls on his radio show and invites his listeners to go to his website and take a poll. So he wanted to do a poll of his listeners to find out why. What's the reason why Democrats are losing? I mean, the Democrats are completely in crisis. There's another article that came out that shows how they're not raising any money at the DNC. They don't have any voters registering for the party, that they're in crisis. So Schmerkernich wanted to do his daily poll and ask his listeners why. Why do you think this is happening? I want you to listen to a little bit of what he says here.
But the Times analysis is a what, not a why description, leaving to us to discuss, okay, it's happening. Why is it happening? And I struggled.
You guys should have been asking this question a decade ago, as I'm getting ready to show you. But now you're asking why, and they haven't figured out why.
What will be my choices? And I wanted to be pithy, and I wanted them to be just a word. You know, we're kind of limited for space in the poll questions every day. I could have added more description than I did, but I wanted to kind of sum it up in a word. So I came up with 6. And I'm sure callers will tell me on air today, oh, you missed this, and there'll probably be merit in what they tell me.
Well, I'm going to tell you what you missed, Michael. I'm going to tell you what you missed, because this is his poll question that he put out. I think it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, the day after that article came out. And the poll question: why are fewer and fewer Americans registering as Democrats? And like he said, he wanted to leave it to one word, which is fine. Economy, yes. Elitism, yes. Leadership, yes. Media, yes. Too far left, yes. Trump, yes. What you left out, Mike, is because you should have put all of the above here. You should have put all the above as one of the answers, because that is the answer. It's all of the above and more and more. So the Democrats, their answer to this, the answer to the fact that the Democrats are in crisis, bleeding support, no one's registering for Democrats, their answer for this to this is this. The answer is Gavin Newsom and AI generated videos of Gavin Newsom that are being promoted by his new media team. Look at this. These people are insane. I saw this as a California resident who's lived in California for over 20 years now. I saw this and I'm thinking to myself, these people are absolutely insane. Insane. And the thing he's got this huge media campaign that he and his team are doing, Gavin Newsom, putting out AI generated images like this. These people are absolutely insane. Look at this. So he's promoting himself more through this media team that he has, primarily on X, but he's been doing podcasts and stuff like that. This guy's wanted to be president and has set himself up to be president. Would you buy a used car from Gavin Newsom? I wouldn't buy anything from this clown. But as a long time, this one is just like, you people are pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. But yeah, he's got this new media team, and this is the answer. This is the answer. He's fighting back against Texas and their mid-century redistricting plan, and that's what Democrats want. We want a fighter, and that's what we want. And what they don't understand is that they don't really understand why they are losing support and bleeding support and cratering support. And it's all of these issues and more that Schmerkernich puts on his poll. And they don't understand that when you say that we want a fighter and you want someone like Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newsom is only going to double down. He is doubling down on the things that people hate about you. He's doubling down on everything that makes you unpopular. That's it. When you say, oh, we want a fighter, we want someone to come in and double down and fight for what we believe in. Well, listen, Americans in the heartland don't believe in what you believe in. It doesn't matter who's fighting. Fake Gavin Newsom. I mean, this is just, they have no idea why they're losing, and the evidence that they have no idea why they're losing is they are promoting Gavin and the media campaign that he's doing with all these AI generated images going on these podcasts and stuff. It's actually working. I want you to listen to CNN's Harry Eaton. Here I got a couple of clips from him talking about how Gavin Newsom's strategy to promote himself to be the leader of the Democratic Party now is working. Take a listen.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has been working in terms of generating attention, which is what he's trying to do, right? I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look right at the @GovPress office followers on X. That's, of course, where you get those sort of the account where Newsom posts those Trump-style mocking types of tweets. Get this. That account, get this, up 450% in terms of the number of followers since mid-June. And it's not just on Twitter, X, where Newsom is gaining. Even on TikTok and Instagram, his followers are up over 1 million since January alone. My goodness gracious. And more than that, Laura, more than that, what about Google? What about those Google searches for him? Get this, daily Google searches for Gavin Newsom up like a rocket. What are we talking about? Since June 1, up 1,300%. Compared to August 1st, look at that, up 500%. So the bottom line is, in politics, especially if you're thinking of entering in 2028, it's all about generating attention. And so far, Gavin Newsom has done a good job at generating attention.
So that's his strategy, generate attention, AI generated images. And it's hilarious. And it's working. He is now the leading polling above any other candidates for 2028, which, if you know this stuff, means that he's likely not to be the nominee. Anyone who starts, flaming out this early is never wins the nomination. But he's leading now. This media campaign, this strategy to be the fighter for the Democratic Party, and they need a leader, someone to come and lead us, and he's the fighter, and everyone's celebrating the fact that he's putting up a fight. So take a listen to this clip of Harry Eaton.
I absolutely think it's showing signs of working. And let's take a look at the voters who know Gavin Newsom best. Those voters out in California, those California Democrats. California Democrats on Newsom for governor. You go back to 2023, just 35% wanted him to run for president.
So 2023, this is 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 2 years ago, the people in the state where this guy is governor 2 years ago, and he was lieutenant governor before he was governor. He was lieutenant governor under Jesuit Jerry. So the people that know him the best is what Harry Eaton says here. Just 2 years ago, only 35% of the people in his own state, 35% wanted him to run for president. Now, because of his media campaign and the AI generated images, and he's fighting, doubling down on stupid. Now, 75% of the state of California, Democrats in the state of California, see Gavin Newsom as their champion. What's changed in 2 years?
Democrats. California Democrats on Newsom for governor. You go back to 2023, just 35% wanted him to run for president. Look at the percentage now who are excited for a run.
They're excited. Excited.
That's a 40-point climb. My goodness gracious. A rising tide of support for Gavin Newsom. Remember, back in 2023, the majority of Democrats did not want Joe Biden to run for another term, but California Democrats in Gavin Newsom's own state did not want him to run either. And now 75%.
Now 75%.
More than that, he's getting a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris in her home state. He is beating the former vice president.
Wow.
This was the Democratic
Gavin Newsom, huh?
2024. As I said, a rising tide of support for the California governor.
And we always say it's very early to be looking at 2028 polling. But why is California polling so important?
Why is it so important? Because I want you to take a look. It's one of those benchmarks, the home state polling for presidential candidates. If they can't win the primary in their home state, they ain't going to win anywhere. What are we talking about? Pres nominees and home state primaries. All of them won. All the nominees won. And all of them led in the early polls. So, yes, winning California is not tantamount to winning the nomination, but it is one of those stepping stones that you have to make.
What he's saying is interesting here, because Kamala Harris, when she dropped out of the primary in 2020, she was polling in 5th place in her home state of California. She was polling in 5th place. So it's very significant what he's saying here, that Gavin Newsom now is at 75%, beating her in California. When she dropped out. So when you understand what he's saying here, it was idiotic for the Democratic Party to nominate her last year when she was polling in 5th place in 2020 when she dropped out of the primary. These people, I swear.
To be looking at 2028 polling, but why is California polling so important?
Why is it so important? Because I want you to take a look. It's one of those benchmarks, the home state polling for presidential candidates. If they can't win the primary in their home state, they ain't going to win anywhere. What are we talking about?
They ain't going to win anywhere. Kamala wasn't going to win anywhere.
All of them won. All the nominees won. And all of them led in the early polls. So, yes, winning California is not tantamount to winning the nomination, but it is one of those stepping stones that you have to make it to if you, in fact, want to win the nomination historically. And, of course, in California, it has the most delegates out of any of the states that, of course, take part in the Democratic primary.
How are things looking nationally for Democrats?
Okay, so we're looking at the states.
All right, national polls.
Newsom's home state, but how about nationally? Does what we're seeing in California?
Look at the top three. Look at the top 3 candidates for polling nationally for the nomination in 2028. And you don't you want to answer the question about this? Why Democratic voter registration has fallen off a cliff? Just look at this. Newsom, AOC, Buttigieg. They have no idea. They have no idea why they're so unpopular and why their voter registration is falling off and why they can't raise money and why they're losing. They have no idea. That look at this, that the top 3 candidates for 2028, according to Democrats, are Newsom, AOC, and Buttigieg. But Newsom is actually, his numbers are increasing because of his media campaign, because of the AI-generated videos.
We're looking at Gavin Newsom's
images.
How about nationally? Does what we're seeing in California translate nationally? Chance of being the 2028 Democratic nominee, according to the prediction markets. Back on June 1st, before all this stress.
This is prediction markets.
Donald Trump. You saw Gavin Newsom 11%, AOC at 10, Buttigieg at 8. Look at where Gavin Newsom has shot up to now. 27% now is the clear front runner, not at 50% plus, but still the clear front runner, at least according to the prediction markets. What we're seeing in California isn't staying in California.
Clear front runner nationally. This is the prediction markets. I think that there's some national polling at the end of this clip. Yep, this is the national polling. Oh no, these are prediction markets too. All right, so this is just the prediction market. But he is now, as far as national polling among Democrats, he's the clear front runner. The clear front runner, Gavin Newsom. Now, like I said, as a California resident who's lived in California for 2 decades, over 2 decades now. I remember when he and Jesuit Jerry took power. I remember what California was like before he and Jesuit Jerry took power, before he became the governor. And I've watched what this guy has done to the state of California. And it's not been good. It hasn't been good. Everyone's talking about this redistricting battle and what's going on in Texas. Well, Texas has a leg up in this battle because Texas has had an increase in population over the last decade. In the last census, Texas gained 2 congressional districts that they didn't have before the last census. But because so many people have moved into the state of Texas over the last census, they're only talking about redrawing districts to get 5 seats. They got 2 seats that they didn't even have before the 2020 census. Texas gained 2 seats because of population growth in Texas. So many people moving into Texas from other states that they gained 2 congressional districts after the 2020 census. You want to know where one of these districts came from? California. California losing congressional seat for the first time. For the first time. In the first paragraph of this. Sacramento, California. California, for decades, a symbol of boundless growth and opportunity. Let me read that again. California, for decades, a symbol of boundless growth and opportunity that attracted people from across the country and abroad, has seen its population growth stall and is losing a U.S. House seat for the first time in its 170-year history. Since the inception of the state of California into the Union, 170 years. California has never lost a congressional district, but because so many people are leaving the state of California under this guy and Jesuit Jerry, Texas picked up 2 congressional districts. What are some other states that lost congressional districts that contributed to Texas's picking up 2 congressional districts after the 2020 census? Illinois lost 2, New York. So people are fleeing these Democrat-run hellholes, and California being one. If I was Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer or any of these other candidates, I would be licking my chops to run against this clown in a primary. I'd be licking my chops. That's why I say, anyone who starts peaking this early, it's very unlikely that he's going to be the nominee. And there's so much dirt to hang on this guy. But the fact that he's rising in the polls, the fact that people are making so much out of Gavin Newsom just is reinforcing the fact that they don't really understand why they're unpopular. They don't really understand why they're failing in voter registration, falling behind in voter registration. They're not raising money. They don't really understand why they are in the toilet. And this is evidence of it. And another thing that they're doing this autopsy report, and this came out in the New York Times in late July. They finally decided they're going to do an autopsy report. And if you remember, after the Republicans were in the toilet after the 2012 election when Romney lost, and they decided to do an autopsy report and ask the question, do a deep analysis of the party and what the party believed in and the direction of the party to find out what was wrong with the party. It was completely bogus. Trump comes along. He doesn't follow any of that stuff. But they did the autopsy report. And then so people were asking the question, when are Democrats going to do an autopsy report? When are you going to do a postmortem and find out what's going on with the Democratic Party? And people were making a big deal. And this article came out in the New York Times in late July. Democrats' 2024 autopsy is described as avoiding the likeliest cause of death. And the reason that people are upset, that I'll read the first paragraph here. It says, Democratic National Committee's examination of what went wrong in the 2024 election is expected to mostly steer clear of the decisions made by the Biden-turned-Harris campaign and will focus heavily instead on actions taken by allied groups, according to interviews with 6 people briefed on the report's progress. So people were criticizing the DNC for not looking at the decision of Joe Biden not to pass the torch and his decision to run, her decision to not separate herself from Biden and all that stuff. We're not going to look at that stuff. And first of all, to do an autopsy of the Democratic Party, you need to look at more than just what happened in 2024. Because as I've been explaining on this podcast, this goes back to problems with the Democratic Party and what is contributing to lower voter registration and them not being able to raise money. This goes back over a decade. It goes back to actually they started losing and have been on this trend of losing going back to 2010. But I've shared this article with you before. This was November 2015. Ezra Klein in Vox writes this article, Don't Believe the Democratic Party is in crises. Crises? Then read this tweet. Crises is the word that Ezra Klein uses in this headline, that the Democratic Party is in crises. It was in crisis in 2015, according to Ezra Klein. And now this Time article that just came out this week, the Democratic Party faces voter registration crises. Crises. The crises didn't just happen in 2024 and 2025. As Ezra Klein is saying here in this article, the crisis was happening in 2015. You should have been doing a autopsy. You should have been doing and looking at what's going on with our party and why are we in crisis back in 2015. We're in 2025 now. It's a decade down the road, and you're still in crisis. So, and what's the tweet that Ezra Klein is referring to here? Well, I've explained to you. It's a tweet by journalist Rory Cooper. And the tweet says, under President Obama, Democrats have lost 900 plus state legislature seats, 12 governor seats, 69 House seats, 13 Senate seats. That's some legacy. That's the tweet that Ezra Klein is referring to when he says, don't believe the Democratic Party is in crisis. Read this tweet. That these are the electoral losses that Democrats experienced under Barack Obama starting in 2010. You've been in crises. You didn't just get in crises in 2025, 2024. I know you've been in crises. You've been in crises, and the crises, because you didn't deal with the crises and you let the crises, prolong the crises, kick the can down the road. Now the crisis is more severe. You're in a severe crisis now. And, and a lot of it has to do with the lies that you guys told us. Democrats will look and listen to what I'm saying and saying, well, if we're in crisis, then how did we win the House of Representatives in 2018? We have the red wave. And how did we win back the White House in 2020? We won the White House in 2020. So since, 2015, when this article comes out, and then up until this article, from 2010 to when this article comes out, Roy Cooper is saying these are all the losses Democrats had. 900 state legislature seats, 12 governors, 69 House seats. 12. So these are the losses leading up to November 2015. And then since November 2015, there's only been 2 victories that Democrats can pin their hat on and say, oh, we're not that bad. We won in 2018. We won in 2020. 2020, I'm not going to even get into 2020. We all know what happened in 2020. There's absolutely no way Joe Biden would have won the White House, and there's no way the Democrats would have had the electoral victories that they had in 2020 if we didn't have COVID and mail-in voting. We all know that. Everyone knows that. But in 2018, what happened in 2018? How'd you get the red wave in 2018? Well, Molly Hemingway, she's going to discuss a little bit about Russiagate as we pivot into Russiagate. Molly Hemingway is becoming one of my favorite journalists on the topic of Russiagate. Didn't even know who she was a week ago, but I really like this woman. I want you to listen to what she says here.
Conspiracy theories are very dangerous, or they can be very dangerous. And our country was gripped by elites holding on to an unsubstantiated and frankly delusional conspiracy theory that Donald Trump was colluding with Russia for nefarious reasons. This was a story that was dripped out day after day, week after week, month after month, for years. And it had really serious consequences. It had serious foreign policy consequences. It affected how our country operates with other countries. It made it more difficult to take on China. If you know anything about how you have to triangulate certain countries to take on threats like what's in China. It affected elections. The 2018 election had a cloud of Russia collusion hanging over it, where a lot of people believed, because the media had told them that it was credible, that Donald Trump was colluding with Russia.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. The Russiagate narrative had a lot to do with the huge red wave that Democrats had in 2018. And that's why this Russiagate story is so important. And this is why you should really, this is why as Democrats, you should be concerned with this Russiagate story and what happened with Russiagate, because I'm going to explain to you how it hurt you. how Russiagate hurt you. Because as I'm explaining that Democrats were in crises in 2015. These are all the electoral losses that Democrats had suffered up until the 2016 election. 900 state legislature seats, 12 governor seats, 69 House seats, 13 Senate seats, all these losses that Democrats experienced going into the 2016 election. The defeat of Hillary Clinton, that wasn't some extraordinary thing that happened that should have surprised anyone. If you look at the trend of the losses that Democrats had up until the 2016 election, that's just the cherry on top of the sundae. So the autopsy that you guys should have been doing should have been after the 2016 election. You should have been looking and saying, what is going on with the Democratic Party? How is it that we're losing all these seats in Congress, these state legislature seats, these governor seats? Why are we losing? You should have been asking that question. But what Russiagate did is after the 2016 election, instead of doing a autopsy at that point and looking and saying, what is wrong with us? You blamed Russia. You said that the reason that Hillary Clinton lost, the only reason she lost is not because this was a trend of electoral losses for Democrats. The only reason she lost is because Russia interfered in the election, and they helped Trump win, and they helped Hillary Clinton lose, and they made Hillary Clinton lose. And if it wasn't for Russia, she would have won. And nothing can be further from the truth. And this is why you're still in crises a decade later, because you didn't fix the problems that you should have fixed after the 2016 election, even before the 2016 election. And that's how Russiagate hurt you. And even though you used the Russiagate narrative and the Mueller investigation to win seats, that's why Mueller should have come in and immediately, it shouldn't have taken him 2 years to prolong this investigation if Trump is a Russian asset or not. But they did that for politics. The reason that investigation lasted for 2 years is because they wanted to push it beyond the 2018 midterms so they could use it for politics. So what I'm telling you is that Democrats have been in crises going back to 2010, 2015, they were in crisis. You didn't do any investigative research to find out why you were in crisis. After you lose in 2016, you just blame Russia for it. And then a decade later, you're still in crisis because you haven't fixed the problems. And then you have 2 electoral victories within that 10-year period. The only 2 electoral victories that you have within that 10-year period is 2018 when you win back the House of Representatives, and then 2020 you have you win back the House and the Senate for 2 years. Just for 2 years. But I mean, we all know what happened in 2020, and they used the Russiagate narrative and Mueller investigation to win those seats back in 2018. What I'm telling you is that those things don't change the core problems in your party. And then after the Mueller investigation is over, and all of these people who are in the electorate that voted for you because you said that we gotta vote for Democrats so we can make sure that he doesn't fire Mueller and Mueller can hold him accountable because he's a Russian asset. And when none of that pans out, I'm not going to vote for you anymore. I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. You lied to me. You told me the president of the United States was a Russian asset. You guys don't understand.
It's more difficult to take on China. If you know anything about how you have to triangulate certain countries to take on threats like what's in China. It affected elections. The 2018 election had a cloud of Russia collusion hanging over it, where a lot of people believed, because the media had told them that it was credible.
Because not only the media, the Democrats told us it was credible. The media told the story that the Democrats, and I've always told you this, that as you see the decline in voter registration and the decline in the Democratic Party, if you look at the chart of the decline in trust in the mainstream media, it charts together. That the mainstream media is declining, trust in the mainstream media is declining at the same rate that the Democratic Party is declining. They're declining together because they are together. So it was Democrats in Congress, Democrats telling the story that Trump is a Russian asset. He worked with Russia to steal the election, and the media were telling the story that the Democrats were telling because the mainstream media, they're essentially Democrats. They're the same thing.
It affected elections. The 2018 election had a cloud of Russia collusion hanging over it, where a lot of people believed, because the media had told them that it was credible, that Donald Trump was colluding with Russia. This story was serious. It was major. And when it ended without any evidence of collusion with Russia, the media and other partisans attempted to drop it. But that's not appropriate. What we saw in that story was not just how damaging and dangerous that conspiracy theory was, but how intelligence agencies and law enforcement can be weaponized for political gain.
Absolutely.
How administrative bureaucracies can think that they get to set foreign policy, that if they have a problem with who the American people elected, that they get to do whatever it takes.
That's exactly what happened.
So this is a very important story. I know it's hugely embarrassing for the media that they helped out with this. And it's hugely embarrassing for anyone who claims to be smart but actually fell for it. But it's
hugely embarrassing for anyone who claimed to be smart but actually fell for it. Now, when I heard Molly Hemingway say this, I immediately thought of this guy. It's hugely embarrassing for someone who claims to be smart but fell for it, like Bill Maher. Bill Maher, he's the epitome of what she says, that it is embarrassing for anyone who claims to be smart but fell for it, because he fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and he's still falling for it. He's still falling for it.
Which is that the Russians meddled in the election. All 17 of our intelligence agencies say that. You would agree to that, right? Well, all 17 of our intelligence agencies.
He fell for it. He fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Bill Maher, and he can't let it go. And the reason he can't let it go is like what Molly Hemingway is saying here. It's because it's hugely embarrassing for him to admit the fact that they got you, bro. You got conned. You got conned. And it's hilarious watching him on his show now. And I'm going to play some clips from him in a moment, but it's hilarious watching him on his show now because he can't let it go. Again, it wasn't only the media telling the story that Trump worked with the Russians and he was a Russian asset, and that, he stole the election using, Russian intelligence to steal the election from Hillary Clinton. It wasn't only the media. It was these clowns in the Democratic Party, and this is why they're losing so much support. Eric Swalwell, this is a clip of him from last week. Or earlier this week. I don't remember. This was after the Trump, I think it may have been last weekend. But this is a clip of him doing an interview saying today that Trump may be a Russian asset. Now, we had a 2-year-long special counsel investigation. The Robert Mueller investigation lasted 2 years. Robert Mueller had the authority to look up Trump's rectum. He looked at everything, every financial statement, every piece of financial and correspondence that Trump had even the stuff that they gathered through the FISA disclosures and FISA spying that they did on the Trump administration. They were able to unmask people. They were able to look at everything. 2-year-long special counsel investigation. Mueller comes out and says Trump is not guilty of being a Russian asset. Trump didn't do that. This is today. This is last weekend. Eric Swalwell, member of Congress, is still saying Trump is a Russian asset today.
Look, Alicia, I don't know if Donald Trump is or is not a Russian asset.
So he's not saying he is a Russian asset. He's saying, I don't know if he is or if he's not. You don't know if he is or if he's not? We had a 2-year-long special counsel investigation that was asking that question exactly, Eric Swalwell. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm saying that Bill Maher fell for it. Bill Maher, who thinks that he's smart, he fell for the lies of Eric Swalwell, who doesn't know today, in August of 2025, if Trump is a Russian asset or not, is what he says.
Proposed or exchanged by both sides. That didn't come out of this. Look, Alicia, I don't know if Donald Trump is or is not a Russian asset.
Wow. So you don't know if Trump is or is not a Russian asset, and you guys can't figure out why you're losing support and your voter registration is down. But this is back in 2018. Like I said, they used this narrative in 2018 over and over again to win back seats in Congress. It was part of their plan.
But is there actual evidence? I've followed this pretty carefully. Where's the actual evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Putin?
So 2014, 15, 16, Russians hack into our DNC. They weaponize social media. 2015, they make
Russia. There's no evidence that Russia hacked into the DNC. We're going to get into this in the next podcast.
our DNC. They weaponize social media. 2015, they make what I think is the first approach that we know. So Felix Sater, Russian-American, former business partner with Donald Trump, approaches Donald Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, and says, let's get Donald Trump to build a Trump Tower in Moscow.
Right.
We can engineer this, get Trump and Putin together, and make our boy president. So that's the first known approach. So the hacking's going on, and you start to see these different approaches. And there's two different types of approaches. There's the approaches to get Trump and Putin together, which is unusual because he's a candidate. And then there's the approaches to preview the hacked emails that the Russians have against Hillary Clinton. So you see that offer made to George Papadopoulos. What does candidate Trump do? He invites the Russians on a public stage to hack more.
He invites the Russians on a public stage to hack more. So this is the strongest part of their case that Trump is a Russian asset, is because he invited the Russians to hack more on a public stage. And he's talking about the Durrell speech, which we're going to look at here in a moment. All right. So these clowns have been telling the story about Trump being a Russian asset for going back to 2017. So 8 years now, they've been telling this story. And like I said, Bill Maher, he ate it up hook, line, and sinker. He thinks he's smart, like Molly Hemingway says, but he actually ate it up, like candy. This is more of Eric Swalwell. Take a listen and different interview.
At what point do you draw the line and not accuse the President of the United States without any evidence of being an agent of Russia?
Yeah, he's betrayed our country, and I don't say that lightly. I worked as a prosecutor for 7 years, and
Betraying the country, by the way, we want evidence before you say that, but you said an agent of Russia.
Yeah, he works on their behalf. He
works on their behalf.
Vladimir Putin in Helsinki in July, where he took the interpreter's notes. Hasn't told any U.S. official what they discussed. He has taken us out of Syria, which is a top priority of Russia. He sought to diminish or pull out the U.S. from NATO. And he's easing sanctions on Vladimir Putin's friends who are under investigation.
But he did pass sanctions against Russia. He has armed Ukraine. He has killed 200 Russians in Syria. I mean, those aren't the actions of an agent of Russia either.
He signed, I think, begrudgingly sanctions against Russia after Congress and people expressed concern, and he got backed into it. But as soon as he could, he has pulled those away. And so,
what makes him an agent of Russia, though?
After it was revealed that the Russians were attacking our democracy, he went to a press conference and said, Russia, keep doing it, essentially.
So we're familiar with that.
He went to a press conference and said, Russia, keep doing it. So this is the line that he's saying, that Trump on a public stage told Russia to hack more, that he went on a public stage and says, keep doing the hacking, is what Eric Swalwell is talking about. Again, he's talking about the Durrell speech. All right. We're going to look at the Durrell speech here in a moment. We'll look at this. This is Eric Swalwell standing behind Adam Schiff. Remember Adam Schiff, as they are telling the lie to win back seats in Congress, lying to the American people over and over again that there is evidence of collusion. Take a listen.
What evidence we have seen to date, what evidence we have seen in terms of the Russian hacking and dumping operation, what evidence we have seen in terms of the Russian social media campaign, their paid media campaign, and yes, the issue of collusion with the Trump campaign. There is significant evidence, much of it in the public domain, on the issue of collusion.
I want to get to the point of, look, collusion is sort of what hasn't been proven here between whatever the Russians did and the Trump campaign. In fact, the former acting director of the CIA, who was Mike Morrell, who was a supporter of Hillary Clinton, he essentially reminded people, took Director Clapper at his word on this show, who said there has been no evidence.
No evidence.
That has been found of collusion. Are we at the point of, at what point do you start to wonder if there is a fire to all this smoke?
Well, first of all, I was surprised to see Director Clapper say that, because I don't think you can make that claim categorically as he did. I would characterize it this way at the outset of the investigation. There is circumstantial evidence of collusion.
But you admit all you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck.
No, we got more than circumstantial
now.
now.
More than that, and I can't go into the particulars.
I can't go into the particulars. You guys wonder why your voter registration is down? You don't know why your voter registration is down?
More than circumstantial evidence now. So, again, I think.
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion.
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial. And is very much worthy of investigation. So,
can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion and conspiracy in plain sight.
So I think at this point in time, it's really difficult for me and many Americans to differentiate between what is overhype and what isn't. You've said on more than one occasion that you've seen ample evidence of the Trump campaign's Russia collusion. Last March, you said you had more than circumstantial evidence of treasonous collusion with Russia. What specifically were you referring to? And please be specific, because if it's true, I do believe Americans have the right to know a year later what that is.
And see, and what this question that Meghan McCain is asking him is how Americans felt when you guys were lying to Americans in 2017 and 2018. People were concerned. They invested, real concern in this, that all these people are saying that Trump's a Russian asset, that Trump was working with Russia to steal the election. They invested in that and had concern. And then when it came out that there was no collusion, people started to look different at you. People started saying, oh my God, these people lied to us over and over again to get our votes. That has a lot to do with why people don't want to register as Democrats anymore. That has a lot to do with it, but that's not the only thing. There's a lot. There's a lot to it. So Bill Maher, he tells the same story that you heard Eric Swalwell telling about the Durrell speech. This is why he can't let it go, because he ate it up like candy. And this is part of his evidence, some of his most damning evidence that Trump is that Russiagate wasn't nothing. That's what he says. Well, Russiagate wasn't nothing. Trump in a press conference asked Russia to hack.
And it was a hack and release program. I mean, for God's sakes, we have that tape of Putin. We also have the tape of Trump saying, Russia, if you're listening, could you please hack these emails? And then they release.
Russia, if you're listening, can you please hack these emails? Is what Bill Maher thinks that Trump said in the speech that we're getting ready, or in the press conference that we're getting ready to listen to. Trump does not say that. Trump doesn't say, Russia, if you are listening, can you please hack emails? He didn't say anything about that, but this is the way Bill Maher remembers it, because he has to remember it, because he doesn't want to admit to the fact that he got took and then he got conned by the Democrats and the media, and he thinks that he's smart. So he remembers it like this, and it's completely bogus.
Program. I mean, for God's sakes, we have that tape of Putin. We also have the tape of Trump saying, Russia, if you're listening, could you please hack these emails? And then they released them the day of the Hollywood access tape.
Right. So Trump says, Russia, if you're listening, can you please hack these emails? And he said that a few weeks ago on his show, and then they got into it on last week's show, and he says it again, making reference to the Durrell speech.
Russiagate was not, completely made up.
Well, Bill, there we disagree. I think we're finding out day by day that it was almost completely made up.
Oh, please.
Completely
it's
made
on
up.
tape. He's asking the Russians for help on tape, which he gave them that day.
So he's asking the Russians for help on tape. He's saying the exact. So this is a major part of their case. Eric Swalwell and what Bill Maher is saying is that Trump asked the Russians to hack on tape in this press conference at his club in Durrell, Florida, during the 2016 election. And I want to go into this as we wind down here. So this speech, this press conference that Trump gives at Durrell is July, you see the date down here, July 27, 2016. This is 2 days after the start of the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia in 2016. And you can see here, Democratic National Convention from July 25th to July 28th is the date. So this press conference that Trump is giving and is 2 days after the start of the DNC. The DNC started on the 25th, and on the 25th, the day that the DNC started is when WikiLeaks releases all of the emails from the DNC that showed that the DNC was rigging the primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. All these emails that forced Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the chairman of the DNC at that time, she had to resign. So she resigned on the first day, which was July 25th. On the second day after all these exposures from WikiLeaks came out on July 25th, on the next day of the DNC, the 26th, all of these Bernie Sanders supporters, they walk out and protest because they're pissed because these emails and these disclosures show that they rigged the primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has to step down. And then the day after that, after all the Bernie Sanders supporters walk out of the convention, the next day, the 27th, is when Trump is at his Durrell property and he's having a press conference. And this is the press conference that Bill Maher is making reference to when he says he asked Putin to hack more in public. And Eric Swalwell is making reference to, he asked the Russians to hack more. And this is evidence that he is in collusion with the Russians because in this press conference, he asked the Russians to hack. All right, we're going to listen to what goes on in this press conference. Trump comes out and he gives about a 2-minute opening statement, and then he opens it up for questions. And the media, the only thing the media want to question, he doesn't want to talk about Russia. He doesn't want to talk about the emails. He wants to talk about what's going on at the DNC. The only thing he wants to talk about is his platform. He's campaigning, running for president, but the media will not let Russia go. The media. Now, at this time, when WikiLeaks, we'll get into that. We'll get into that here in a moment. Let's start off with, this is the first questions that are asked. When he gives his 2-minute opening statement, this is the very first question that is asked.
Why don't we start off? Any questions? Yes, sir.
And I hate that you can't hear the reporter's question, but it's about Russia. You're going to be able to tell when you hear the answer.
It's just a total deflection, this whole thing with Russia. In fact, I saw her campaign manager, I don't know his title,
Robbie Mook.
I saw him on television, and they asked him about Russia and the hacking. By the way, if they hacked, they probably have her 33,000 emails. I hope they do.
I hope they do. So what is he talking about here? First of all, he's talking about Robbie Mook, which I've played the clip of him the day after the emails were released, and Robbie Mook immediately knows it's the Russians. And I asked the question, I said, well, how does Robbie Mook know that it's the Russians right away? You know, the day after the release, there's no intelligence report. Clapper and Department of Homeland Security, they don't put out their letter until October 7th, that they think that it's the Russians. You don't have any intelligence agency saying that it's the Russians. Robbie Mook, the day after, says that it's the Russians. How did Robbie Mook know that it's the Russians? And I've explained to you, we know now that Robbie Mook knew that it was the Russians because the company that they hired, CrowdStrike, to tell them that it was the Russians, told them that it was the Russians. That came from CrowdStrike. So Robbie Mook, the day after the leak, he starts saying that it's the Russians and that these experts told us that it's the Russians. The experts that he's talking about is CrowdStrike, the company that they hired. And so that's what Trump is talking about here, first of all. And then he says, if they did hack, I hope they have the 33,000 emails that she deleted while she was under congressional subpoena. That's what he's talking about. Because everyone knew that she had deleted all these emails after Congress had issued a subpoena for those emails. She hit the Blackberries with the hammers. She wiped the hard drives with the bleach bit. She basically obstructed justice by destroying all this stuff while she was under congressional subpoena. So he's making a joke here. He says that we don't know that it's Russia. Robbie Mook says that it's Russia because he heard from CrowdStrike. They don't know that it's Russia. No intelligence agency says that it's Russia. But if it is Russia, they probably have the 33,000 emails that Hillary Clinton tried to delete to obstruct justice. That's what he's talking about.
In fact, I saw her campaign manager, I don't know his title, Mook. I saw him on television, and they asked him about Russia and the hacking. By the way, if they hacked, they probably have her 33,000 emails. I hope they do. They probably have her 33,000 emails that she lost and deleted.
She deleted them.
Because you'd see some beauties there. So let's see. But I watched this guy Mook, and he talked about, we think it was Russia that hacked. Now, first of all, it was what was said on those that's so bad. But he said, I watched it.
He says, first of all, it doesn't matter if it's Russia or not. It's what was said in those emails that were so bad. Is what you guys said about Bernie Sanders and rigging the election, to advance Hillary Clinton and to hurt Bernie Sanders. That's what was so bad. We don't know it's Russia.
Now, first of all, it was what was said on those that's so bad. But he said, I watched it. I think he was live. He said, we think it was Russia that hacked. And then he said, and I'm just an innocent person sitting watching television, as I've been doing. And then he said, could be Trump. Yeah. Trump. Oh, yeah, Trump. He reminded me of John Lovitz for Saturday Night Live in The Liar, where he go, yeah, I went to Harvard. Yeah. This is the guy. You have to see it. Yeah, it could be Trump. Yeah. So it is so far-fetched. It's so ridiculous. Honestly, I wish I had that power. I'd love to have that power. But Russia has no respect for our country. And that's why, if it is Russia, nobody even knows it's probably China.
I have no idea.
Or it could be somebody sitting in his bed.
We're going to talk about it in the next podcast.
It shows how weak we are. It shows how disrespected we are. A total sign, assuming it's Russia or China or one of the major countries and competitors.
Understand that this is the press conference that Bill Maher and Eric Swalwell and many others are making reference to. This is the best evidence that Trump is a Russian asset and that he colluded in Russia, is this press conference right here that you're listening to.
It's a total sign of disrespect for our country. Putin and the leaders throughout the world have no respect for our country anymore, and they certainly have no respect for our leader. So I know nothing about it. It's one of the most far-fetched I've ever heard. Yes, John? I never met Putin. I don't know who Putin is. He said one nice thing about me. He said I'm a genius. I said thank you very much to the newspaper, and that was the end of it. I never met Putin.
And you notice every question, so you had two questions. The first question was about Russia, second question about Russia. This is the media focusing on Russia and asking questions about Russia. So that's the context of what Trump says that is the strongest evidence that he's in collusion with Russia, according to Bill Maher and Eric Swalwell and others.
My question is, should you become president, would you treat Vladimir Putin as an adversary or an ally? I would treat Vladimir Putin firmly, but there's nothing I can think of that I'd rather do than have Russia friendly as opposed to the way they are right now.
That's what they didn't want.
So that we can go and knock out ISIS together with other people.
He says, so the question is, if you become president, would you treat Russia as friendly or as an adversary? And he says that I would treat Russia harshly, but I can't think of anything more than being friendly with Russia so we can work together to go and knock out ISIS, which Obama armed. So that's the context of what he's saying, and that's what I was explaining to you, is that that's what they didn't want. That's why they created this Russiagate narrative, because they didn't want Donald Trump to be friendly with Russia.
Firmly, but there's nothing I can think of that I'd rather do than have Russia friendly as opposed to the way they are right now, so that we can go and knock out ISIS together with other people and with other countries. Wouldn't it be nice if we actually got along with people? Wouldn't it be nice if we actually got along, as an example, with Russia? I'm all for it. And let's go get ISIS, because
so that's what they didn't want it. Here's another question.
None.
And if the answer is no, why not release your tax returns to
Because it's under audit. I'll release them when the audit's completed. Nobody would release when it's under audit.
The question is,
I've had audits
if you're not in league with Russia, release your tax returns so we can see. Now, Mueller looked at all the tax returns. We've all seen the tax returns now. There's nothing in there about Russia. But back then, it says, well, if you are not in cahoots with Russia, release your tax returns. Let us see.
Because it's under audit. I'll release them when the audit's completed. Nobody would release when it's under audit. I've had audits for 15 or 16 years. Every year I have a routine audit. Under audit, when the audit's complete, I'll release them. But zero. I mean, I will tell you right now, zero. I have nothing to do with Russia. Yes. I don't know. Depends on the audit. Depends on the audit.
All right, so they want to see the tax returns. Okay, here's another question. Getting into Russia.
About Russia or China or whoever it is that's doing the hacking. It was about the things that were said in those emails. They were terrible things.
That's exactly right.
Talking about Jewish, talking about race, talking about atheist, trying to pin labels on people.
Again, he's going into, it doesn't matter if it was Russia or China. It was what was in those emails that was so that they were talking about using Bernie Sanders' Jewish heritage against him in the primary. They were talking about Bernie Sanders being an atheist and how they could use that against Bernie Sanders in the primary. He says, Trump is saying that's what you should be focused on instead of where the emails came from and who hacked. You should be focused on the fact that the DNC is rigging the primary for one of the candidates against another. Why aren't you asking questions about that?
They were terrible things. Talking about Jewish, talking about race, talking about atheist, trying to pin labels on people. What was said was a disgrace. And it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And believe me, as sure as you're sitting there, Hillary Clinton knew about it.
She knew about it.
She knew everything. Debbie Wasserman Schultz could not breathe without speaking and getting approval.
Clinton was running it. And we now know that what he says there is absolutely right, that Clinton knew about everything. Okay, so after all these questions, and you still have another 45 minutes of this press conference after this, but this is the line that Eric Swalwell and Bill Maher are referring to when they say he asked the Russians to hack more. He asked the Russians to do more hacking is what they say that he did. This is what they're talking about. Take a listen.
Let's get tough. Why not get tough on Putin and say stay out? What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing.
It's funny because you can hardly hear the question, but I can recognize his voice. I know exactly who's asking this question, and it's Acosta. I forget his first name, from CNN, Acosta.
And tired of Hillary Clinton.
You say, let's get tough. Why not get tough on Putin and say stay out?
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to...
It's funny because Acosta is saying if you want to get tough, why not get tough on Putin and say stay out? No one knows that it's... How do you know that it's Putin at this time? Because Robbie Mook said it? Because CrowdStrike said it? That's how you know it's Russia? But you can always see that the media is already going along with the narrative that Hillary Clinton and the DNC want them to go with, is that it was Russia and Donald Trump was colluding with Russia.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. He doesn't respect our president. And if it is Russia, which is probably not, nobody knows who it is, but if it is Russia, it's really bad for a different reason, because it shows how little respect they have for our country when they would hack into a major party and get everything. But it would be interesting to see. I will tell you this. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
So the 33,000 emails that are missing, he doesn't say Russia hack more or Russia, will you go and hack? He says, Russia, if you can help us find the 33,000 emails. Which 33,000 emails? 33,000 emails. The 33,000 emails that Hillary Clinton, that she deleted to obstruct justice while she was under congressional subpoena. That these emails were just lost. That he says, I don't have anything to do with Russia. But But Russia, if you're listening, if you can help us find the 33,000 emails that Hillary Clinton deleted to obstruct justice, I think that you would be rewarded by our press, is what he says. Well, he was wrong about that. The press didn't care. The only thing that the press cared about was framing you and Putin with this Russiagate narrative. We're going to get exactly into the hacking part on Monday. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.